Ladies, I'm so glad to be back. I have been trying to get here all day long, but I had so much that I wanted to finish first, and I was trying to get a place in the house that was clear enough that I could actually sit here without too much distraction and clutter around, and working my way to my worst room and trying to get that all cleaned up. But I love taking a break and talking to you. And today I am wearing a plaid shirt from we got a new tractor store in our area, and they had plaid shirts, 100% cotton, and it's the tractor company from Tennessee. And the products in there are very nice, and I just love their wagons. And there's a wagon there that I have my eye on that I think would, with a little PVC pipe, I could make into a princess carriage and put lights on it and pull my grandchildren around for a ride. And so I've got my eye on that, and a couple of others. I went in there and I also found a plaid shirt for me and one for Mr. S for my fashion for men over 70 section of this blog. And I am making these videos for my blog, so if you are wanting to have more notices of when I have updated, then you really need to apply to subscribe to my blog too, because not only will you get the videos, you will also get the other things in between, the books that I read and the other hints that I make. And today, obviously, I could not find anything, a teacup to go with my plaid shirt. So, but I have teacups here that I just love, and I want to share this with you. I wanted to show you this teacup by Corel, and I believe that they were made in the 60s. And the beauty of these cups, now I've collected a lot of them. They're not real popular because they're not very pretty, but they're almost indestructible. And the tea tastes pretty good in them. They're kind of thin. You can kind of see through them. And the beauty of it, whoever invented this was brilliant, because look at the shape of this, and you put your finger in here and your thumb up here, like an old-fashioned coffee cup you would have had in the restaurants in the olden days. And so this is actually quite a nice cup, and the tea tastes wonderful in it. And what I like about these is I can travel with them. I can take them when I'm taking tea to my children or my grandchildren or somebody else, a friend. I'll take all the teacups with me so that I won't have to mess up their kitchen. And look how they stack. They're just beautiful, and they're lightweight, and they don't make too much noise. There's no lead, and it's glass, but it's by Corningware, and it looks like it was from the 1960s. But when I see these in the Goodwill, I buy them because they're absolutely beautiful, just as good now as they were the day that they were new. I pack these in the car. They don't have to have padding around them, and I really like them, and it's the only thing I could think of that would go with this particular shirt. Now today I am also drinking a tea called called Passion by Tazo, and it's passion fruit, rose hips, orange peel, and there was something else that was in here. I can't think of what it was. Licorice root and fruit juice, and this is what the package looks like if you're interested. But someone introduced this to me. There's another one that someone introduced to me called hibiscus that I quite like. But anyway, I wanted to show you how pretty it was. It's like the fruit teas that I make, you know, with a few berries. But it's so pretty and it's so fragrant. So I wanted to show that to you, and I chose this clear cup so you can see it. But it looks really nice, you know, when ladies are drinking it out of this particular cup. It looks really, really nice. It's pretty. And so anyway, I wanted to show you that. If you're ever having a tea, it looks very nice in these cups, the hibiscus and the passion fruit. So today I would like to let you know that if you've got something you need to do, I want you to do it while you're listening to me. It's always nice to listen to something. You know, I have my favorite movies that I put on just for background noise, and I kind of enjoy learning the quotes, and you know, from listening to them so much. It's like listening to the same music, your favorite music, over and over. And today I learned one from Pride and Prejudice where Elizabeth Bennet said, I do not play this piano as well as I should because I will not take the trouble to practice. And now I've heard so many people say, I just don't have the talent for homemaking. I'm just not good at it. I just can't do this. Just not my, I'm afraid it's not in my line. And so I wanted to tell you that what she said was absolutely true. And even the Bible says, practice these things, and it was talking about goodness and talking about good works and good things. And so your home and taking care of it is a good work. This is so important. And so in order to become proficient at it, you just have to practice. And practice just means a steady adherence to something and doing it over and over. And you know, there was the old saying that practice makes perfect. Well, it's so true. If you do the same thing over and over, pretty soon you can do it pretty well. Now, I watched a child one time learn to draw a house. And this child was so intent on drawing this house. And every time I saw this child, he was drawing a house. And I noticed from the years that he was first trying to recent years, he's gotten better at it. The house looks more like a house. So you'll get better at it as you go. So if you're having trouble getting started, I have 3 things that I want you to think about: your appearance, your general work, and working around people. And of course, I love to talk about all the fun things that people do. And sometimes you have to work around them, and sometimes you have to stop and help other people, and you just keep that goal in mind. But I'd like you to know that if you've got something to do, if you've got something to fold, even if you're not ready and you're ready to take care of your appearance and get dressed and fix your hair, just listen while you do that and get dressed. Now, if you've gotten dressed and you don't know where to start next, then let me tell you, one thing always leads to another in this little system. And that is, now that you're all cleaned up and you're dressed and you're all scrubbed up, you go to your kitchen. And the kitchen is where now maybe you'll prepare some food. And let me tell you how to save some work, save some energy, save some time, and save some money when you're working in your kitchen. And that is to work neatly. You know, when you're mixing up something, whether it's a salad or some kind of a batter or anything, there's no need to mix it by hand so vigorously that it splashes all over the place, and then you have to clean that up. Learn to cook neatly. And even when you're working on just the stove area and the heating area where you cook, you can prevent yourself from splashing everything all over the stove, and that means that you don't have to do so much cleaning up after. And don't discourage yourself, because if you clean as you go, you won't have to have a cleaning day or a cleaning hour. So clean as you go and learn to clean neatly. Now, it's just something as simple as washing out your measuring cups afterwards and turning them down to drain. And, you know, just doing, instead of letting everything pile all up, just clean as you go. So then we want to talk a little bit about the kitchen, because now that you're all fresh and dewy-eyed and ready to go, and you've got your appearance taken care of, and by the way, your appearance is your starting point. This is where you will start. You feel like a new person when you do this. Every day is a new day. And I thought this morning when I was getting up, you know, this is a wonderful time to be alive and to experience what's going on in the world as well as what's going on at home. And you, for the most part, are going to determine what goes on in the home. You know, when I look through the old albums of my grandparents from the olden days, I look at all the descendants, the ancestors that go back, you know, way back till the 1800s and 1700s, and I look at some of the recordings of when they were born and who they married and all that, and some later on when pictures came in, I can see their photograph. I wonder what was going on politically in the world in those days. I'm thinking about what they were going to do, what they were doing. I wonder what they cooked. I wonder what they sewed. I wonder what color their dress was. I wonder what kind of furniture they have. I wonder where they went on their vacation. I wonder what kind of things they said to their children. I wonder if they thought about me. 200 years later, I'm wondering, do you think they knew anything about the future generations? Do you think they would have liked me? And so I don't think about who was president at the time, and I don't even know what their opinion would be. Nothing that they left behind expressed whether or not they liked the president, whether or not they approved of anything, but they had things that they left, like their dishes, their teacups, and maybe some little handwork. That was what was important. I want to say that to you because you just can't waste any more time worrying about politics. Let me talk to you a little bit about politics. So while you're getting ready here, maybe you would like to listen to some of this. Maybe you won't. Maybe you could find something you would like a little bit better. I have just come in from outside for a brisk walk, and I'm a bit disheveled, and my nose is running a little bit, and I'm a bit red in the face. But I was thinking while I was out there about what we used to do in the olden days when we, and I like to laugh and say, I'm from the olden days. I really don't feel like it was so long ago. Things change so fast now that 5 years ago is considered antique, and I'm always amused about people saying certain things are antique that I had, just 20 years ago. It used to take 100 years to get an antique, but now, they call everything vintage. And anyway, when there was an election in our state, and we didn't like the governor, and we didn't like all the, I wanted to explain this that to some of you that are overseas, that we have separate states in America, and these states are separate little countries that have their own governor, and we have a legislature, a state legislature, with our own state House of Representatives and our own state Senate, and it's all just a little country in itself, and we're all connected in a united way for the common defense of America. But each state has strong states' rights, and those rights are stronger than the national rights. And I've told you this before. But we elect a governor that's like a president of our state, and we elect our senators, our representatives. We elect our local sheriff. We elect. We even elect someone that runs the. I'm trying to think what it's called. It's a district of electricity. We elect somebody to look after that. So everybody's elected, and when we get a result from our election here in the state or whatever state you're in, and we don't like it, and we don't like the governor, and we don't like that. Here's what we used to do way back in the olden days. Is we just got on with our lives. We just did things we wanted to do, and we ignored it all. But see, and we waited until the next election, thought, well, we'll do better next time. But we kind of ignored it all, and we went on with our lives. And I remember one year when my children were young, that the children got interested in the election, and were so disappointed because the person that was elected was not very godly and not, didn't kind of go along with what we believed in, homeschooling and all that kind of stuff. And so that was the year we said, well, we'll just ignore it. And the children learned to make speeches, and the children learned to debate, and they learned how to make things. And we had great discoveries. We even played, I don't know if you remember me talking about this, we had dinner theater at our house. We put on dinners, and we had speech making and theater, and which we created. And the important thing was that I wanted the children to grow in spirit and in health, and being able to think properly, and to be optimistic about life no matter what. Well, nowadays we have so much constant broadcasting going on about the political system that we can't ignore them anymore. Like we used to just elect somebody every 4 years and then get on with our lives, because they were elected to represent our beliefs, and so we just would get on with our lives after that. But now the media keeps us in a constant upheaval over it. So what I would suggest is you do it the way we did, and that is get on with your life, learn what you want to learn, do what you want to do, and have some goals for your home, especially your home, because there's more power in the home than anything else. And I believe that the the homemaker has more power than she realizes. Do you realize that people cater to you and want your business all over your town? They make manufacturers make things to attract the person who's going to be buying it for the home. And the homemaker is going to determine a great deal what kind of furniture she has, what kind of car she drives, and they know this. These manufacturers know this. So everything's about sales, and so you are important. You do control quite a bit. And so I would say concentrate on your home. Remember the years that there was a president that you didn't like. That might have been the years you painted your house and you had a better home than ever before. And so this is what you must do. If for example, you don't get the right president that you want. Let me tell you something about that so that you can keep this in perspective. The president's not our savior, and his power is actually quite limited. And there's the executive branch that's what he is. He's in the executive. Do you know what an executive is? It's somebody who takes care of the business. It's somebody who takes care of the finances. It's somebody who tries to balance the budget and tries to keep everything going. An executive keeps the company going. And the rest of the people are representatives and other things and judges and that sort of thing. But the executive kind of runs the business aspect. So a lot of people expect so much of the president that they become very, he's supposed to rule us like a king, and he's supposed to be this wonderful, benevolent savior and everything. But God is our ruler, and he's our judge, and he is our Christ is our representative, and we live for Christ. We don't live for our president. He's there to do what he was elected to do. So when you get that in perspective and you don't, then you can't get disappointed. And also, I think that our media portrays so much of it as though these people are celebrities and stars, and our focus is on it. But like I say, when I look back at the pictures of my ancestors, it doesn't even hit me. Well, I wonder who was president at that time, and wonder what effect it had on them. I think they were rather removed from it. They were, most of them, farmers in those days, and so the farming was very important to them. And perhaps the election day was mainly a feeling that their land was their country was going to be intact and protected after the election by trying to elect the right person. Now, I think today, of course, women especially, it's very bad for them to get too overwrought with it, because you will come to a point where you're so upset about politics and different things that you will look back one day and say, when did my children ever see me happy? When did my children ever see me content? And when did they ever see me with peace of mind? So you have to not allow those things to run you, to control your mind, because children, if they're fussy especially, they sense that your mind is on something else. You will feel that. If you've ever had any kind of conflict in your life, the children are fussier, even though they don't know what it is, and that you might not even be mad at them, but they sense it, and they tend to be more anxious. So it's very important. I remember I had a painting on one of my blog posts years ago of a woman, just a painting of several paintings. It was a set, and I'm not sure who the painter was. Was it Gibson? I'm not sure. And he had one called Not Worrying About Politics, and it was just a relaxed looking woman. So it's not your job to worry about politics. You really need to be focused on your home. And it's hard to do with so much information all the time. So now getting ready is so important in homemaking, because if you're not ready and you're waiting till you get the bathroom all scrubbed out and the kitchen all scrubbed out and you're still in your pajamas, and then you're going to take a shower and get dressed, that will be the day where everyone's cranky, and that will be the day everyone starts coming to the door, or that will be the day where you'll be called out. So you need to be ready first thing in case you're called out. Now, what I mean by called out is in case you're required to go out of your home and do something. And I believe it's very important to be dignified when you're outside of your home just as much as when you're inside of the home. So far, I have discussed getting ready and getting your mind on your work. That is so important. And I know a lot of you are looking in my background and saying, you know, I'd like to have that. I'd like to have that and everything. But a lot of these things just came from our goodwill. And if you're overseas and you're wondering about this accumulation of things that most of us have, in the last 10 or 15 years, a lot of things have surfaced in the Goodwills and the donation stores that you can get almost free quite cheaply, and they weren't around back in the old days, because I remember not having some things and being astonished at how, you know, there was a time when I was growing up, especially in the 1950s, where you couldn't find a furniture store. There was no such thing as a furniture store. And I don't know how people got their furniture. Maybe it was handed down. And I know a lot of people built things to sit on. And my father, very cleverly, in those days there were old cars, and people would take parts out of the one car and put it in another car, and they'd have old cars so they could fix cars, you know, fix the cars. They were always tinkering with the car. And one of my funniest memories is several trucks with the front hood up and the men with their head in the trucks and fixing things. Well, my father cleverly took in those days the seats weren't the bucket seats, they were long couches, and my father cleverly took the seats out of this old car and created a couch in the house for us. In fact, I have a picture of it in my book, Just Breathing the Air. And I thought that was so clever because it was so comfortable. It was well upholstered. Those old cars were very nice. And so I'm saying that all this stuff has surfaced just recently, and it's very easy to get a lot of things quite cheaply. And I always thought that there was going to be a depression or something, because my parents were from the Depression era, and I always thought there was going to be a depression. So when we got something, I just hung on to it. So, and one thing about hanging on to things is that there's no, like if I were to get rid of something, like that piece of furniture behind me, if I were to get rid of that or get rid of that, there'd be a bare space there. And the first thing my mind would think of was, I've got to put something there. I've got to replace that. This keeps me from the trouble of replacing it. So that's just a little bit of talk to keep you company while you're doing something. So I hope you're getting something done now, and I hope you're folding something, cleaning something, whatever. So after you've gotten dressed, go to the kitchen, because you're all cleaned up. Now you can do some food preparation or some kitchen cleaning. And I want to tell you something about the dishwasher. If you're young and you're not used to a dishwasher, now I didn't get a dishwasher till I was about 40 years old. So it was I didn't grow up with a dishwasher, and I couldn't remember that, hey, you need to unload it when the dishes are done, because you need a space to start putting the dirty dishes as you go. And what happened was, the dishes would be all washed, and the dishwasher closed, and we would start using dishes and piling them in the sink. Well, what you have to do is, in the morning you unload the dishwasher, and at night and all day long you load it. You don't let those dishes stay in the sink. You load that dishwasher all day long. That's where you put your dirty dishes. You rinse them off first and you put them in there. Then at night you turn it on just before you go to bed. And then the next morning you unload it. Well, it's been an awful struggle for me, because I didn't grow up with a dishwasher, and to remember to unload that thing and not let dishes pile up in the sink. And so it's lovely. It's very encouraging. And I would say, in your housekeeping, encourage yourself. Do things that encourage yourself. If it encourages you and makes you happy to see a table cleaned off with just a nice little centerpiece, do that. It makes it encourage yourself. Go back and look at it and see how and feed yourself back that beauty. It makes you feel pretty good. So if your sink is clean, you'll feel pretty good. And it's always nice to wake up to a clean kitchen. And I understand, you know, if you've just had a baby or you've just come in from a trip, and there will be times when that won't be possible, and you'll wake up and it'll be all terrible. Or maybe you just get discouraged at night and can't seem to get to it. But you know, as I have always said, things are always darkest before the dawn, and in the morning you'll say to yourself, I wonder why I felt so, like that felt so daunting. Because in the morning things are so different. It's so refreshing. You're just refreshed. You have a different mind in the morning. So the other thing I'd like to suggest to help you to be happy in your homemaking and be happy at home is to treat your front room, that first place you see when you enter. Now, the first place you see when you enter my house is the distance, into the distance is the dining room. It's just a focal point. The living room is to the left, so you don't see that first, but you see the dining room. So what I want to happen is for when I come in, that room is cheerful, and there's a bouquet of flowers or a teapot or something nice on the table, and the chairs are all pushed in, and the window is clean and it's uncluttered, because that first is the first thing I'm going to see when I open that door, when I come in from the grocery store or from outside. And so, but if you will treat your lounge room, sitting room, living room as a fancy hotel lobby, you'll have a whole different perspective on it. And this is something that you can think about and get a picture in your mind of, or visit. You know, you can also help yourself and go visit hotel lobbies, the nice ones, you know, and see, or go look at them online and see what they're like and why. There's a reason why that they figure out what is going to draw you in, you know, what's going to draw you in to a room. And so, you know, it's not full of furniture that's not arranged right, or the colors. Everything is thought out, well thought out in creating this atmosphere. And if you will treat your house like something grand like that, you're going to feel so much better about it and be happier. So feed yourself happy things. And also every day, now we're going to get down here to people. And every day you're going to be working around people, because you're going to be working around your children or your grown children, or friendships or other people, and around your husband. And the important thing is to make life better for yourself by giving good thoughts and cheerful thoughts, and trying to build everybody up, and you know, look on the bright side of everything. And indeed, this is just a wonderful time. You're home at your home. And I remember one of the things my mother said to me that she remembered when she was in the house in Alaska that my dad built for her, that was the wonderful golden time of her life. You know, being the homemaker and having a home and having her children there. And so, you know, you want to leave that memory for them and that memory for you. And if you get into screeching at the children, they're going to have a memory that'll come back. You might not think they'll remember, but maybe years later, that memory will come straight back at them, and they'll be bitter. So you have to be careful what you say and what you do. And so I wanted to also give you a little bit of encouragement about your appearances, to wear something that you like, that looks good on you and feels fresh and crisp and natural. So I like to wear natural fibers. And I also want to leave a link on my blog for you to look at, because it's a lady who is, she's probably younger than me, but she's a nutritionist, and she talks about eating real food and how to treat your body so that you don't gain weight and so that you're very healthy. And she mentions that it's not about exercise and calories, and how you can eat so that your body is balanced. And I mentioned before about your waistline. You know, if you can get your waistline back, and you can do that through eliminating certain kinds of food that aren't I mentioned about going to the grocery store and buying food as close to nature as possible, as close to the real thing as you possibly can. And so I'll leave that link because right now I can't think of who it was. I've been watching several people, and she makes it's something you wouldn't have to watch. You could listen to it. It's about health, and you could listen to it as you work. So that would be something else that you could do, and when you're not listening to me. So treat yourself every day to something good, and even if it is to make your house better than it was yesterday, or make a little progress each day in some room or some aspect of your house. Other thing I want to talk about is stewardship. Now, that's a word you probably need to look up. I don't have the information right now as to exactly what it means, but in the olden days, there was a steward that was hired to work for someone, to take care of his business, to take care of his property, to look after things. And the steward always wanted to do his very best for his employer because that was a good job, and certainly didn't want to lose it, and he wanted to serve as best he could. So in your home, if you think of yourself as a steward and you do the best you can there, let's say you're not living in the ideal spot. You don't like where you are, you don't like your house, you don't like your town, you don't like the place you're living, you don't like anything. What I would say that you can do, and I've heard people in the olden days talk about this, that they have been happy everywhere they have been because they took hold of the house or the dwelling that they were in, and they made it clean, and they made it tidy, and they shined it, and they made it beautiful. And no matter what your limitations are, you can make it a pleasant place to be and make it its best and leave it better than when you came. I know there's a common habit these days when people leave a house and they move away, they just leave all their stuff there. They leave it all junky, they leave trash there. When we moved back in the olden days, my mother was so self-conscious about the shame of being messy, filthy, dirty, and poor. We were always ashamed of being poor. People in those days would never want to appear to be poor or low class because they, so what they did was they had good habits, they had good manners, they had a sense of cleanliness and order, and that raised them up to what they thought was high class. So they would never leave a house. If they moved out, they would make a special trip back to clean the floors, to clean the windows, and clean everything in this house. And if it was their own house and they were selling it, it still mattered. They did not leave anything in it. They cleaned everything. Every crack and crevice was so, when the next person bought it and moved in, it was clean. If someone didn't care about that and they just left it a mess, they were thought of in such a negative way. And we all wanted to avoid that. But I have heard about people who just leave the house, or even students that just kind of throw all their furniture out on the lawn and leave. And so, but we were good stewards, and that's what I wanted to teach you today, is being good stewards of your possessions and look after everything. And make, when you leave a place and move into some other place, leave the other place better than when you moved in. And you know, and while you're living in the place you're in, if you don't like it right now, start working on making it the most pleasant place that you can live in right now, in the interim, while you're waiting for something better. I'm not saying that you have to feel like you're stuck or anything like that. So if you've got any ideas about this, please leave me a comment. And ladies, please leave comments because they give me some great ideas. Now, somebody recently wrote to me, and I wanted to address this, about how I talk about wearing dresses and skirts and, you know, being a little bit more feminine, and how it does no good to just tell a woman, well, you just need to wear a dress. And unless you teach her how to behave differently in a dress. Because you can't walk the same way, you can't sit the same way, you cannot behave the same way in a dress. And also, but it works the opposite way too. When you're wearing something like a skirt or a dress, you tend to also feel more feminine and perhaps behave more feminine. But I know in a book, one of the books that I read, it was considered a, I don't know, that there was derogatory terms used for ladies who continued to act more boisterous and wild in a dress, and it was like dressing up a cow or something like that. It was just ridiculous. But so if you're wearing a dress, be refined. Learn about refinement. Now, I once took a modeling course back in the 1980s because of the fact that it was one of these local courses, and it was run by a lady that I knew, and she was teaching different things like posture and how to walk and sit gracefully. She even taught how to get it in and out of a door gracefully. She taught how not to get yourself all caught up in something or get snagged on something, and how to wear a dress, and how to behave, and also how to speak. And I'm not saying that I did excellently in the course, but I did learn a lot, and since then have met many refined people that are much better at it than I am. But she taught how to make introductions and how to create conversation and how to speak diplomatically and many other things. And she also taught how to dress and and it was one of the last classes I ever attended that was actually real, that wasn't online. This was before we had the internet in the olden days. And I would like to do that sometime, but I'm waiting till I am smarter with videos and with computers, and many other things I'm waiting for to change. But hopefully I can do that for you, because I'd like to pass that information on. I still have the notebook of the notes that I took when I went to these classes, and it was about a year long. I went to these classes and learned so much. As a matter of fact, I used it on several occasions. And one time for my ladies' class, I had tables all around the house, and they were tea tables, and I had guests, and I had people modeling clothing from the past, from the ancient past to the modern, and different dresses. They would go around and then describe the garment and the history of the garment, and that sort of thing. Was a lot of fun. And I also had a lot of classes for young people on how to be more refined, and how to sit and stand and walk in a dress, and how to dress with separates. Separates are difficult because they're selling them all in the stores, but no one's showing people how to put them together, so that they don't look too uncoordinated. And we were taught when we were growing up how to match things, and you would wear a solid skirt with a printed blouse, and the skirt would have to have a color in it that would bring out something in the blouse. Like, for example, a shirt like this, most people would wear a black skirt because it just would look better with it. And you would learn what would be the dominant color in the blouse and what you would wear with it. And it's the same with dresses. We would see the color in the dress and know what colors to wear with it, when you matched a cardigan with it, that sort of thing. And so like I said, it does no good to say, well, I've got a dress on, if the dress is not appropriate for you, if it's too short, if it makes you look fat, if you feel like it's too flimsy, or you feel too cold, or you just don't feel confident in it. You can't just say, let's wear a dress. There are millions of kinds of dresses. There are millions of styles. There's millions of colors and combinations and things like that. So you have to choose one that when you wear, it makes you feel good, it makes you look good, and you think it's just your kind, just your style. And so you can't just throw anything on. So there's a big study in that. And I found my home in dresses with the Victorian era. And so what I do is I wear Victorian inspired clothing. In other words, I might choose something that I get right off the rack, or that I sew. It's not actually a Victorian dress, but it has the elements of the Victorian, the sleeves, the length, the colors, the different things like that. So you might find an era that you like. And like I said, this is actually a wonderful time to exist on the earth, because now what? We get to have every era since the beginning of time that we can glean from for our style in everything, for our clothing, for our furniture, for just for interesting things and interests. We can go back so far, we go back to the era before the Victorian times and after the Victorian times, 1920s, 1930s, 40s, 50s. And one of my interests, and you can go on my Pinterest and find it, is the Caucasian styles. And those were, although they call them Caucasian or Caucasian or something like that. And they were the people that traveled over the Caucasian mountains and settled in those little mountainous valleys and places and developed their own style. And they were the people that had the castles and the knights and the ladies, and their clothing and their traditional clothing was very much like what women and men were wearing in the Victorian times, which I found quite fascinating. And so, I like to study different cultures and their costumes, and I like all kinds of, just because I like textiles and I like fabric. So, you might want to look around and see what there is that appeals to you, and if it's pretty, if you like it, if it somehow, I know some people would say if it speaks to you, or if somehow it it draws you to feel blessed by God in some way, that this is something that's just beautiful, that it complements nature, that it complements the creation. And that's what I try to do with my clothing, is wear something that goes with the creation, and not be too opposite, just more blends with the beauty around me. And of course, I live out in the country. I live on farmland. I get to see the beautiful sunsets. I get to see the stars at night, and I get to see, and we have lots of rain. And so I have developed my own style, and one of them is I like the fog fashion, the rain fashion, and there was another one I created. I can't remember what it is now. It had something to do with that, and it was mist. The mist and the cloud fashion. And because I think there are other things besides just summer and winter, there are just so many other little tiny seasons in between. And so now I'd like to talk about working around people. And I've had several conversations with people who've figured out ways to work around people. And so they say, you get around someone who wants to be negative, and that's one of the biggest problems, is getting around someone who wants to be negative, and maybe they don't know they're doing it. And I have spoken about this before in several videos, that sometimes they're just in a habit of it, and they don't realize they're doing it. And so I want to discuss that for a little bit before I quit here. And I hope you're getting something done and not sitting here and watching me. There's nothing here to see. And that's what these videos for. It's like housewife radio. It's something you can turn on while you go clean the bathroom sink, or while you sweep, or while you do other things, and hopefully give you a little bit of company. But one of these problems with negative people is if you let it get into you, that is a problem. And you get around someone who will say the opposite of whatever you say. And I have heard that and I haven't tried it, but you might try it too. When they say the opposite of what you say, because I don't know, some people just think that's the way you converse. Some people think it's a way of being, making you feel they're intelligent. If you object, it's kind of a critical, they used to call it critical thinking, but it's really just rude, and they don't actually know it. So you want to be kind and not respond too badly to it. But when they say something the opposite of what you have just said, and it just continues, and you can't say anything, they've just knocked down just about everything you've said, you might resort to saying something like, you may be right about that, and then just move on to the next thing, because you're not saying they are right. You're saying, oh, you may be right about that, or yeah, that's a possibility, and you just move on. And you don't want to let them control. Some people are more sensitive to negative talk than others. Other people doesn't really bother, to them that's nothing. But other people feel completely slighted when people start being objectionable when they talk. And I want to warn you about it too. As you get older especially, don't get into that. Don't get into being negative all the time. Always look on the upside of everything. Look for a possibility, and be careful you don't use that to aggravate people either, because let's say someone is trying to give you something. Maybe they have some fabric that they don't want anymore, and they want to give it to you, and you say, oh, well, you could do this with it, or you could do that with it, or you could do this with it. Well, it's probably better just to say no thank you, or thank you, and leave it at that. Because sometimes that can be discouraging too, telling somebody how what they could do. And most of us, of course, don't want more to do. So I have to remember that too. And so if someone offers you something, either accept it or decline it, but don't go into a long explanation of why they should keep it or why they should not do what it is they want to do for you. Just accept it or decline it politely. And so the point is not to be aggravating. Look at the things that people do that aggravate you and determine not to do it. Just take a note of everything that they do. Now, I had a story one time years ago, and I'm still going through my books, so I haven't found this one yet. And books are aggravating to go through, aren't they? Because they're not the easiest. They're the hardest thing of the whole house, our bookshelves. And shelves of books, because it's not like other stuff. It's you have to actually open those books, go through them, and see if you really want to keep them. And so they're hard. But there was a story of a lady who was an acquaintance with someone else who could never say anything but dreary things. And unfortunately, if you get a group of people that get into that, it starts to become a national hobby. That everything, or if you're in a particular state that's kind of where there are a lot of people like that, your state or your town will be identified as these gloomy people. And so you want to prevent that and present your state, your country, your county, your church in the best light by having a better an upbeat outlook on everything. And it doesn't mean that you're being unrealistic, but it does no good to give a bad report. And there are plenty of examples in the Bible of how God was not pleased with someone who was giving a bad report or saying that nothing could be done. And every time one of the prophets said that there was nobody that was on their side and nothing could be done, God told him to get up and go and do something. And so you cannot please God by being discouraging other people, or by pouring cold water on people's dreams and their plans. Now, I also want to tell you something about people's dreams. Yeah, we hear a lot about this, and you see it all over on Pinterest about living your dreams and stuff. But this can be a problem, because if you get it in your head that you have a dream that you want to live, you need to remember that God's will comes first, and doing right comes first, and doing your duty and your responsibility comes first. So if your dream requires you to abandon your responsibility, that's not a good dream. That's everybody's nightmare. So I have heard about men who've said, well, I'm going to live my dream, and they'll abandon their families, and they will quit their job, and they will quit supporting their families. And so a man's not told in the Bible to live his dream. He's told to do his responsibility. And so, and it's fun to dream, because I dream too, and it's good to have them. But keep them in perspective. It's really good to have a vision of things that you'd like to do or things you'd like to be. You know, I've always said that someday I'm going to amount to something. And that's one of my dreams, to be able to do, to amount to something that that I've dreamt about. But I'm not going to let that be a priority, because I think if you do your duty and you take care of your home to the best of your ability and be a good steward, and be a good steward of your appearance and of your body and everything else. That's why I'm going to include a link for this lady that talks about good health. Then you're going to actually live a dream and be happy and inspire other people and be relevant today to other people too. So please, when you have listened to this, please leave me a comment and give me some more ideas of things that you would like to talk about. And I hope to become smarter and learn more about how to do. I would like to do a video someday of a tour of my home, and also do maybe some of these classes on video that I learned in the little modeling school that I went to help young ladies and older women to be more refined and to be more gracious and graceful, especially when they're wearing clothing like a dress, because unfortunately for ladies, unfortunately especially in America, if they've grown up in jeans and t-shirts and tennis shoes, they're not comfortable in dresses, and so it's very difficult to get adjusted to that. And so it's best if you grow up in them. That's nice. But anybody can change. Like I said, it doesn't matter what age you are. You can change if you really want to, if you're determined. And so with God's help, you can do better, and you can, especially I think, having a wonderful home life, that is so important. And I hope that to explain more of this and some of the things that we did when we were younger growing up, we used to sit around at night. I had a big family. We were in a big family because we were in a family of 9. There were my parents and siblings. And in the evening, we always managed to have a fireplace wherever we lived. We lived in Alaska, and we also lived in Australia. In both places, we had real fireplaces. And in the evening, we would sit around the fire and sing and talk and joke around and make up stories and make up songs. And so when I got married, of course, there's only one person there, and he didn't grow up in a big family, and they didn't do that. And so I had to think of ways to have some interest in the evening, and that's when I learned all about creating a home and decorating and some of those things that I read to you the other day from Emily Barnes' book, The Spirit of Loveliness, and I started to collect books on how to make things and do things and that sort of thing. So because I wanted something to do in the evening, and so this was how that came about. And so there's just so much. And my mother, she followed my father, all over the world, and she had her hobbies and her interests. And that's what I say too, that women all have to have some leisure arts and some things that they like to do just because they like it, just because it makes them feel good. So I hope from this video that you can get something from it. I didn't use any notes today and just rambling about this and that and the other thing. And hopefully tomorrow I can do a little bit more for you. And please leave a comment. Thank you for your sweet sacrificial donations and all those things that help me so much and keep me enthused and keep me interested and keep me going. And remember, make that list of what you've been doing, and leave a list of what you accomplished while you were watching, while you were listening. You're not supposed to be watching. I hope you got hope you caught up with a lot of things, and we'll talk to you later. God bless. Goodbye.